How long does it tell you how?
Oh, it's already getting started.
Space
Okay.
left.
You like to go to parties, but sometimes you find yourself just standing alone in the corner, taking the situation in. You like to use your body. You like to, go out and exercise and maybe play some sports with your friends or whatever. But sometimes you're a little lazy and you just stay in. You may experience luckiness in love this week. Or you may experience great changes. You should brace yourself for that. So these are Barnum statements. And the idea behind a Barnum statement is that it's supposed to be crafted in such a way that it sounds like it applies to you specifically, when in fact it applies to everybody. And I like the fact that Barnum statements speak to us so deeply. And we can tell that we like Barnum statements because that's like a fortune teller's bread and butter. They'll just throw a bunch of Barnum statements at you and you'll be all like, oh, you know me so well. But I think it says something interesting that we like them because, they apply to everybody, but we feel like they apply to us. I feel like that means that, when we're experiencing whatever emotions it is that we tend to feel kind of alone in them. But in fact, it's not the case. So that's the first thing I want to say. The Barnum statement sort of shows us that we're not nearly as alone as we feel like we are in our emotions. Barnum statements are so amazing and so appealing that you could, if you were so inclined, divide the entirety of humanity into 12 arbitrary groups according to their birthdays, and you could then, in a newspaper, publish a Barnum statement for each of them every week, and people will be entertained by that. They'll enjoy it. And that's quite remarkable, because, of course, the point of a newspaper is that everybody reads the same version of it. So it's interesting that, you could put a horoscope in there, and that would appeal to people. So, Barnum statements... Oh, I've completely lost my train of thought. I'll just paint for a little bit. This part's fun, I just improvise with it a little bit. I just go with my gut for where the paintbrush strokes that I go. Right, okay. So, we've been talking about, so obviously horoscopes are kind of nonsense, right, in a way. They have no supernatural angle on the world. I do not believe in horoscopes in, the religious sense of the word belief. Now, you might think that, therefore, we ought to just do away with all this nonsense, but I think that's the completely wrong response to fortune-telling and to horoscopes and things like that. And to demonstrate my point, imagine a scene. You're in a bar, and there's a bunch of people all sitting around talking to each other. They don't necessarily know each other very well. And a girl leans over to a guy, and she says, oh, what's your sign? And he, thinking himself, very smart, very skeptical, very clever, says, oh, I don't believe in that stuff. I think it's a bunch of nonsense. Well, I think he has just completely missed the point of horoscopes. Here he's trying to relate to women in bars, and what's happened, the very first thing he's done is shot down the cute girl who was just trying to have a conversation with him. The conversation ought to have gone something like this. What's your sign? Oh, I'm a Scorpio. Oh, yeah? Oh, I can see it. Scorpios are I don't even know what Scorpios are supposed to be. Oh, I can see you're very ferocious, just like a Scorpio. Oh, yeah. Well, what's your sign? What's even another sign? I don't even know another sign.
Capricorn.
You're like, oh, I'm a Capricorn. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, so you can tell I'm a Capricorn because I'm very sneaky or something. You're like, oh, yeah? Oh, that's cool. What's something you've done that's, sneaky lately? Tell me a good sneaky story. So there you go. that is the point of horoscopes. It's a way for mainly women, I mean that's just how our society uses it anyway, to strike up a conversation that has surprising emotional depth to it. You know, you're talking about like, who you are as people. And granted, the Barnum statements, it sort of applies to everybody, but that doesn't make it any less deep. So, I think that horoscopes are in fact quite important. They're quite lovely. I can see them being important for the content, maybe for some people, possibly only in the sense that sometimes a little bit of conviction goes a long way. Like, do you go north or south around the iceberg? Well, it hardly matters. You just need to pick one and pick it now. So, my horoscope said something about being warm, so let's go south. Great, fine. That's a fine answer. But yeah, mainly I think that they're just there to like help us relate to each other. And so there's this movie that I really like called The Pervert's Guide to Ideology that I highly recommend. And he has this idea in there that every ideology, every idea has a publicly stated purpose and a real private purpose. Like the reason it's really there. And so for astrology, I would say that, the stated purpose is to, to tell the future and to teach you what to, do for love and life and so on. But of course that's not true. The real point of astrology is like a fun way for us to relate to each other in bars and so on. And so I think, like many ideologies, the secret is, you don't have to worry too much about whether you understand the real point or maybe you buy into the stated point or whatever. Whatever you do, just don't take it too seriously. Have fun with it. That's the important thing. So I think, like sort of in conclusion, when you're talking about ideologies, it's not necessarily so constructive to ask the question, what does the ideology say it does? Because every ideology says it does something. I think it's much more constructive to ask the question, what role does the ideology actually serve in our communities? Like, how does it actually work for us? Is it something that's positive and we like, or is it something we maybe ought to think twice about? In the case of astrology, I would say it's it's wonderful, it's positive. Absolutely, even though, I don't think astrology is real in real life, you should feel free to come up to me and discuss it in bars. And I feel like that same truth holds for people as well. Everybody says, I just have to pick a color I haven't used yet. It hardly matters which one. My horoscope said I ought to use blue. It hardly matters what you say you do and what you believe and so on. Everybody says they do and believe things. In fact, everybody thinks they do and believe certain things, but what's really important is what do you actually do? That defines you as a person. And I think that's where Richard Dawkins and Bill Maher and all these new atheists kind of get it wrong. They're like the guy in the bar who says, I don't believe in that. I think it's a bunch of nonsense. Therefore, I think we ought to get rid of it. I think that's the wrong response. I think the right response is to say, what role is religion playing in our society? And is it one that we like? Do we think it's good? Do we think it's positive? Or is it one that, we ought to revisit? And not even necessarily just in society, but in each and every one of our lives. Religion is a personal journey. How are you relating to your religion? I have no qualm with any Muslim, any Christian, anybody who believes in compassion. And I have every problem with atheists who are kind of mean to women. Okay, what am I going to call this thing? This is another quote from King Julian. I've been quoting King Julian a lot on my paintings lately. This one's just called Bird Noises by Dave